So let's get into this, because how would you describe the general attitude right now of Ukrainian-Americans in New York? What are they thinking and feeling as they watch this play out?
Well, thank you for recognizing how many New Yorkers are here, Ukrainians are here in New York. We've been here for over a century, and the bulk of that immigration actually came after the devastation of World War I and World War II. So two waves of refugees. Those are the people that built our churches throughout the East Village, Brooklyn, Astoria. Uh, these people do not want to have happen what happened to them as children. So what they remember, like my father, who grew up in a German displaced persons camp after World War II, they don't want to have a new generation. It's talked about at the UN, possibly millions of refugees being in the wake of Russia's invasion. If that happens, that's an entire generation of people that will once again have to do what I, as a child, had to do in a New York school, which is tell my teacher that actually Ukraine is a country.
Right.
It used to have independence, and then the Soviets took over.
So what's your feeling then after what happened yesterday, Putin recognizing those two breakaway regions? Do you believe that Russia is going to invade? Is it inevitable?
I think everybody is preparing for that. So now in this world where we get to Zoom and Skype with our friends in Ukraine, now we're making sure that our friends do have go bags. Have they contacted their family in the West? Do they have a place to bring their children to? But at the same time, there are people who are determined, absolutely determined, as I think any New Yorker would be, if an army showed up on their doorstep and said, you can't stay in your home anymore. There are people who will not ever leave.
Yeah.
They are determined to protect their homeland.
Yeah, I mean, you stayed up late last night. You watched a Security Council meeting, right? You obviously have friends and relatives in Ukraine. We saw video of some folks who live in Ukraine training with dummy rifles to protect their homes. So you're talking about those go bags. Two things here. Where do they go? And if they do leave, right? And what are their concerns right now if they actually stay?
So one of the things that is hard for people in this country to understand when they look at the globe is just how big Ukraine is.
Yeah.
So my frame of reference is if I drive from Montauk and I keep driving towards Cleveland, I still have about 2 hours to go before I get anywhere close to the Ukrainian border. That's how big the country is. So when you hear the experts on cable news explaining that, no, Putin really does need to have like 10 times more troops to cover all of Ukraine, that's a reality, and the fact that it's so big. So even if people who are right up to the border now were to travel just a couple of hours to the west, there's still a lot more country left to go.
Got it.
So that's why a lot of people aren't leaving the country directly.
You know, when you live here in the United States, it's hard to believe that that is their reality in Ukraine. So what are Ukrainian-Americans right here in our area? What are they doing to try to help their family, their friends back in their homeland?
Well, first and foremost, our people are packing the churches. So if you haven't been to a Ukrainian church recently, almost every service will have 3 special petitions for peace. We've had special prayer days, both at our Orthodox and Greek Catholic churches. Our rosary chains are going pretty much nonstop. In terms of physically making sure that people, because people want to feel empowered and do something, we have had a long-term supply chain from the beginning of the war in 2014 of surplus bandages, whatever supplies, medical supplies to people who are recuperating from the war over there. And then very practically in the last 2 weeks, our communities across the country, also combining with the Ukrainian community in England and Australia and other countries, we're working with NGOs already in Ukraine to pre-position supplies of medical supplies, pharmaceutical kits. So whatever were to happen, those refugees have supplies immediately.
Got it. You know, and President Biden agreed to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin as long as he holds off invading, right? So do you think, I know it's crystal ball here, that kind of summit diplomacy has a real chance here to avoid war?
Well, the fact is that Putin rolled over new tanks last night. He's deploying what he calls peacekeepers onto Ukrainian territory. There's also the fact that Ukraine suffered the largest cyber attack in its history over the last week. So taking that into combination, you have to wonder where exactly is the line for the Western leaders to say that first Russia needs to do something. And that's what all the NATO countries, when they met with Russia, they said, we'd like for you to do something first, which is remove your troops from Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova first, and then we can start talking about a new world order.
Well, Andriy Dobriansky, we do appreciate you coming and speaking with us this morning. We wish you and your family all the best, and hopefully war can be avoided.